Okay, I'm just keeping you
Muted.
mute actually. So as you guys said, I hope you can hear me. As you guys said yesterday that you wanted to discuss the interview question. So I have a couple of interview questions which is there. I think only 12 are there. So I don't think that's okay. Okay, I'll just find it out quickly. And meanwhile, I also want you guys to share your interview questions. Okay, and regression testing, we'll discuss that. Okay. So we have a couple of questions here. Convert a null value to a not applicable column. So I think this you can answer, right? So probably you can just participate in this discussion. You can try and give your inputs so that you can check your knowledge level. I'm unmuting you, all of you.
Unmuted.
So just share your inputs and then try to participate in this discussion so that it will be easier for you to, even for the interview point of view. Okay. So the first question is about converting a null value in a column into NA. So how do you do this? So any inputs on this? How will you go about it? So it's basically you have an NVL function in Oracle, right? So just give sorry. Yes, NVL of column name is not applicable. So this is something an NVL function. So NVL of column name, so which is not applicable. So records are updated in the source table. Write a SQL query to compare both using the source table and the target table. So how do you go about this? Write a SQL query to compare both using the source and the target table. So this is probably just for an example. I'm just trying to give you this one. So basically, when the records are updated in the source table, once the data is loaded from source table to the target table, it is basically that in order to compare, we'll use a minus query to run it. So you can use a minus query between source table and the target table. If both are in the same database, we'll try to use it, and that's how we'll do. So how do we compare the source file with the target DB table? So we have seen this approach, right? If you see this source file, generally we import the data into a table by creating some dummy table, and after the transformation, we'll try to run a minus query between that and this. All right. So if you have still got questions when we are discussing, right? So you can just stop me, and then I'll try to repeat that what we have discussed. All right. So moving on to the next one. So what is difference between a view and a materialized view? See, view is something that which is logical in the database and which physically does not store the data. It is just like a container which helps you to retrieve the data from a table. Materialized view is something that which is physically exist in the database, and it will store the data in a separate storage. I mean, it will store the data in a separate memory again. It will physically occupy some memory, but data in a view doesn't occupy any physical memory. So your materialized views should be refreshed as and when your base table gets changed, but the view you don't need to, because it's just a logical thing. You don't need to do that. So that is the difference between a view and a materialized view. I think we discussed this. All right. So next one is a difference between a delete, truncate, and drop. I hope everybody is comfortable with this. So when we discussed about the SQL classes, we did completely talk about it. So how it is there. So what is difference between the union and union all? So union is something which will eliminate the duplicate records by combining the data from multiple data sets. Union all is something which will not eliminate the duplicate records. In using it. So that is a difference between the union and union all. How do you design a test case to test the ETL jobs? So basically, designing a test case is defined on various scenarios. As you know, we actually test it on smoke testing, functional testing, system testing, and the performance testing. If you talk about a functional testing, depending upon the scope of your project, so we actually do the data validation between the count and then the minus query between the source and target. How do you design is basically you can explain about the tool that you are going to use, like a quality center. We upload the test cases over there and then start doing it. And we will also represent the test cases in XLS and then upload it onto the quality center or something, or ALM, whatever you can explain. That way you can do it.
Karthik, for the previous question, union and union all, performance-wise, which is better?
Union all is better because it doesn't eliminate the duplicate records, right? It just sums it up.
Okay.
I mean to say, when I say sum, it's nothing but it is just group both the things from both of them. It doesn't do anything, right? So union all will be always better.
Yeah, that's why they asked me this question.
Union all will be better always. Okay. How do you remove the? Okay, coming back to the fourth, what would be the difference between a view, materialized view, and a stored procedures? See, view and materialized view are not a programs. Okay, so if you have to perform something like a task like inserting a data into a table, that doesn't work with a view. Or if I have to insert a data into or drop a table from the database, that doesn't work with a view. But the stored procedure, yes, you can write some set of instructions which helps you to basically perform certain task or a group of some operation. You can do that in case of view stored procedure, but it is not the case. But most of the time you get this question, view materialized view. Okay, how do you remove the duplicate records from a table? So see, basically I hope you understand that the duplicates are actually of two ways we describe the duplicates. So one is a row level duplicate and another is called as a column level duplicate. So when you say a row level duplicate, so suppose if I write something like this, 100 Gangadhar, and you have another one called as 100 Gangadhar. So if you have the same thing which is being repeated in both the records, this is called as a row level duplicate. But if I say this one 100, let's say you have another one, so Ganga. So let's say if you do this, this is not a duplicate. If I consider these two records, this is not a duplicate. Or even you have it as something like this. This I cannot consider it as a duplicate if I look at the row level, because your employee ID or whatever the customer number is different here. But if you see these two records, this is called as a row level duplicate and this is called as a column level duplicate. So if you have to eliminate the row level duplicates, you're going to write one query. And if you have to, it's basically that you just have to do it, then it is the query that you're going to write. So delete from whatever the table that you're going to write, and where, let's say you use a row ID. I think we already discussed this, what is row ID and what is row number. So we will write it as where row ID not in, select minimum of row ID, minimum of row ID. So what you do is minimum of row ID from, so it's basically from the table name, from whatever the table name, same table name you have to use, and group by column 1 comma column 2. If you want to group the, let's say I want to eliminate the duplicate records in the employee ID column, so we'll group the data by employee ID. So or we will actually do it by column 1 comma column 2. So if you have multiple columns which you're considering that to describe it as a duplicate, so that we do it. I think it is not fitting into it. Let me break this into this line, and you have till this, and you have so this is how we do it. How do you remove duplicate records? So okay, compare the command in Unix. How do you compare the files and what will be the output? There is a command called as fcompare, I think file comparison. Let me just get that. I'm also not sure about it. I think there was a command called as a fcompare, file comparison. If both are identical, it will give a value as file comparison in Unix.
One is different and one is compare.
Yeah. File comparison. Okay. It's you have a diff function in Unix. Yeah, difference. So it's just the option file 1 and file 2. If you give what would be the output of this? It just gives you 1 if it is equal. Difference of I. Compare to text file only with the differences. Okay, so this is a difference function probably. How do I compare two files in the Linux? Yeah. Coming back to the old question again, so distinct is just to eliminate the duplicate records in the select. Here the question is, how do you remove the duplicates from a table? That you need to write a delete statement to do that.
Karthik, and there is another question, like how you find the duplicates, which in SQL?
Yeah, it's a regular.
Yes.
It's a regular thing, right? So you just group the data based on the columns and then you'll identify it. Okay, you need to use a different command line by line. Different. The general syntax is different. File 1 and file 2, where example which tells the changes need to be made. Okay, it just gives you the output. What is different in these two things? But if you want to compare, I think there is a file comparison. If you want to find out the difference between the two files, this is a command. It will just give you line by line comparison. What is different, that it will give you. That is the different command which will do. But maybe that is which is expected from you. Compare command in Unix.
No, this is
compare command. How do you compare the files? What will be the output? So there is a command called as a compare in Unix.
There are three commands. One is different, one is compare, and another one also there. I forgot.
CMP.
Yes.
So basically, if you try to open this, okay, it is just giving you the option as compare one, and if you want to compare in the size, you mentioned that compares the file 1 and file 2, reading the each file byte by byte, compare them until one of the byte pairs is not equal. When a difference is found, it will output the location in the file where the difference was found and exit. Okay. So it will basically give you the what is different. I think it is working more or less similar like a different command only. So it is just comparing the each and every line of the file and then giving you the output. So the answer for this question is you can use CMP and then the DIFF. So that is a different command. So count the number of lines in Unix in a file. If you want to find WC minus L is a command, and if you want to give a file name, it will give you the number of lines. So that is a command to find out the number of lines. So what is difference between a SCD type 1 and SCD 2 and 3? So I hope you have the answer for this. So SCD 1 is something that which will store the most recent data. SCD 2 is which will store the complete history information, and SCD 3 is something that which will help you to store the partial historical data. And what is a data warehouse? A data warehouse is nothing but the subject-oriented system which helps you to make for a decision making or something. Or if you have to give a Kimball's definition, data warehouse is a subject-oriented, integrated, non-volatile and decision making system which non-volatile system which is used for a decision making. So that is what we have as per this one. All right. So
Karthik, the other question is like, what is semi-additive, additive, and non-additive? They will be asking this
what
one.
Is
additive?
What is additive? Just semi-additive. This we already discussed it during the dimension modeling, if you remember.
Okay.
So if you say that non-additive facts, okay. So when you go for this, let's say additive facts are something that if a fact, I have a fact table, let's say I have, that fact table will contain all the dimensional foreign keys, right? And the measurable columns. So let's say I have a dimension column called as a customer key, and I have another column called as a product key, and another one product key, and you have something called as a measurable column, let's say profit and the quantity. Okay, profit and quantity, whatever is there. So if a measure is actually dependent on all of the dimensions, then that is called as a fully additive fact or an additive fact. If a measure is dependent only on the few of the dimensions but not all, then that is called as a semi-additive fact. If a measure does not depend upon any of the dimensions in the fact table, then that is called as a non-additive fact. So most of the facts in the, if you see the profit and the quantity, both are dependent on the dimensional keys, so we call it as a fully additive fact. Semi-additive means if it is dependent only on one of the dimensions, not all. And non-additive is which does not dependent on any of them. So non-additive fact example are derived measures. It's like, let's say if I want to calculate the percentage of profit, how much percentage of profit that I have actually got out of my sales. So this percentage of profit is actually dependent on the profit to determine, but not, it doesn't depend upon the dimension. So this fact is called as a non-additive fact, which does not depend upon any of the dimension. So if a measure is fully dependent, fully additive fact, half dependent, that is semi-additive fact, and which does not dependent is non-additive fact. So that's how we differentiate the additive, semi-additive, and the non-additive facts. All right.
The other question is what type of approach we test for the reports? The approach for the reports testing means it's like slicing or dice.
Drill down.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, drill down. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What is an approach that we follow? Okay. So yes. So this thing I'm going to show you on the UI, on the BI. So tomorrow I'll just open a BI tool and then show you what approach we actually follow in implementing that. So this question I'll answer it and then do that. Okay. Any other questions on the ETL part?
And same question, what is the approach or how you find the requirements for this ETL, like before starting the project, how you follow the...
How do you understand the requirements?
Yes, yes. What type of approaches you can follow?
See, basically, as an ETL tester, if you talk about the development lifecycle, so generally you won't be involving in this, but you have to understand the requirements from the your fellow developer and then do it. So generally, how do we understand the requirement is that, so it's based on the artifacts that is provided from the developer. Okay. So how it happens is that we go through the design documents and requirement documents, so that is called as a BRD, and we go through the technical design documents, so that is your technical design documents, and the data model, and the data model as well as a source to target column mapping sheet. So these are all the sources wherein we go for understanding the complete nature of the project and then what needs to be done from your end to do that. So this is how we capture the requirements, and sometimes your developers also will provide the KT to you, like what they have developed and how it is going to work. So in some cases they'll also tell you that okay, this is what happens in this scenario. That's how it works.
And I've forgotten to ask another question, like star schema and snowflake schema, which is the best advantage? And this is a commonly asked question in interviews.
Okay, star versus snowflake. So when you see that, in case of a star, all the dimensions will be in the denormalized structure. In case of a snowflake, few of the dimensions will be in the normalized structure. So which one is better for reporting? Always the star is better. In a star schema, you will have a less number of tables. In a snowflake schema, you will have a more number of tables. So for retrieving the data, you need an additional joins in the snowflake schema, which will be the complex to retrieve the data. If it is a star, you will have a less number of tables, and the denormalized data will help you to retrieve the data faster than the snowflake schema. All right, I think I've shown you the diagram also when we went through the dimension model.
The performance-wise star schema is the good one?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Okay, what is the other question?
I have that's it.
Okay, I have a couple of things here. Okay, let me just go by one. Okay, what are the 5 to 10 responsibilities for this position to be what the candidate is expected to be or complete on a daily basis? What software skills needed to perform these daily responsibilities? Okay, let me just, okay, these are the questions what we got here again. So let me just try and read out one by one and then try to answer the question. Okay. So the first question is what are the 5 to 10 responsibilities for this position? Okay. Bhargav, can you help me to fill this? Okay, what are you doing on a regular basis? Now you joined the project, right? So did you get a task assigned?
Yes, I was doing the migration project, and
Okay.
we are means if I tell about my project, ours is Seattle Bank and the Iowa Bank both are merged, so we need to validate the Seattle data. So here we are validating in three types. One is data elements. Data elements means what are the data elements we are getting from the Seattle, we are validating the same data element in our application. So we are using the financial application which is Calypso and Bankmate, so we are validating directly in the, and the values, the transformed values, the transformation values which are transformed into the Bankmate, those values we are validating. And the third one is the framework which we are following for the database level validation, like the what are the ETL database testing we are doing, common those things.
It's
And,
like account validation and all those
yes, and
things.
before that we are writing like high-level test plans, test scenarios, test cases, and all this stuff. Now we are working on test scenarios.
Okay, you're working on test scenarios and what are the scope of the project and you have defined it.
Yes,
So
yes,
the test plan will contain all the scope of the project, like how you're going to test
yes,
and test scenarios, how it works, right? So,
yes. The what are the I explained the data elements. Those all are in-depth ones. It's related to test cases.
okay, it's related to complete test cases. So
Yes.
did your team provided you the complete requirements and the design documents and the source to target column mapping sheet and all
No,
those things?
no, they don't have any documents. We are the first people to create the documents. So we are preparing from collecting the data from the business users, business analysts, developers. Every day we are having the meetings and
Uh-huh.
collecting the data. Based on that, we are start writing the test plans and test cases. We have like some 10 products. One is like, if anyone knows the financial securities, like stocks, bonds, derivatives, um, options, swaps. These are the different products. So we are working on those products.
Okay, it's basically that two banks have actually merged
Yes,
and you're trying to bring up the one bank data into the other bank. You are basically combining both the things into a single project.
yes, correct.
So is it only Informatica is used or do you have any other tool like master data management tool
Oh, okay.
or data
Here,
quality?
here the ETL tool is SSIS, and the data, the database is Oracle and SQL Server 2008.
Okay. What are the tools that are used? SSIS and
SSIS.
Oracle database is a complete software and you have an SQL server as also as your database. Alright,
Yes,
so this is
yes, and
this one.
this is like database level testing, and we are doing on the front end application also. The front end office call it in securities. Those all are called Calypso is one application. These all are financial terms. Bankmate is another application, and Principia. These are the three different where we are validating the data elements.
Okay. So this is more like a data migration project. You're bringing up the data from one system and you're merging into the other system. Whether all the new data, whatever you're bringing is appearing properly on the UI or not, that you're testing.
Yes.
In all these two applications, whatever you talk about, Calypso and this one. See,
Bankmate.
yeah, Banquet. Okay. So when you talk about even in addition to this, this is more like a data migration project. If you go to data warehousing project, if you go to data warehousing projects, so it is more or less that you do the same kind of responsibilities that you perform. When you say that, when it comes to the responsibilities of an ETL tester, so what are the 5 to 10 responsibilities that we perform? So first thing is you are going to prepare the test plans, right? And okay, let me just write that. So prepare the test plans and test cases and all those things.
And the test data. is the
Okay.
core part.
Data, yeah, it depends from a project to project. It's like in case if the data is already available, you'll just make use of that data and then do it. Else, if it is required, you probably have to prepare the test data as well, right? So the second one is what do you do once your migration is done to the QA? Execute these test cases. Execute these test cases, and before that, understand the complete requirements. I mean, that is the first step, I think. Understanding the complete requirements. If required, you'll also understand the understand it from the business users. So, and the developers. Understand the understand the business
requirements.
Yeah, business requirements from developments,
BAs,
BA, and the users or a
business
BA.
users. Business
Okay.
users.
Okay. So this is something that which we also follow. If required, we'll actually involve the business users, else BAs and your development team will clarify that. So execute the test cases. When you say that executing the test cases, interacting with your, I don't know, I mean like since you are working at an onshore, your responsibilities will be different. Directly you'll be involving directly with the calls and you'll not have an offshore team which will be up. If there is something like that, you probably can add that responsibility as well. Distributing the work to offshore team and to get the work done and all those things. If you are working in a different environment where together as a contractor, then you can probably explain them saying that, okay, this is how our project manager will assign the work and we prepare the test cases, execute the test cases. And I mean, basically, again, when you say that what kind of testing you do, that also is an additional or a type of testing or which you can actually mention that as a responsibility. What testing that you do, smoke testing, functional testing, and all those things. So if you want to make more elaborative, probably you can break this into multiple responsibilities. Preparing the test plan, preparing the test cases, preparing the test strategy, all those things. Once the testing is done, you probably do the sign off and all those things. You can additionally add it and then include it and then test. So when you talk about the tools that are used to perform your daily responsibilities for executing the
Jira is another tool, defect tracking tool which we are using.
GR, is it?
Jira, G-I-R-A. Defect tracking tool, that is the open source tool. No, J-I-R-A. Yes.
Okay, this is a defect tracking tool what we use, and defect tracking tools, as you know, like HP,
yes.
Quality Center, ALM. I think it's a new version from that, and you have Test Director as well, right?
Yeah. And Rational Clear Quest.
Rational Clear Question.
Yes.
Okay, that's whatever you have and that tools. For executing the SQL queries, if it is an Oracle database, we'll use SQL Developer or Toad or Teradata SQL Assistant and all those things. So if it is Teradata and all, we use that. And what tools and skills? Skills are nothing but your ETL skills, and then the reporting skills are being used in this project. And basically, you need to know the SQL, right? That is a main skill that you need. I think this question is repeated. So if we call tool skills, and this is more like that. So these are the technological tools that you use for performing this. So this is more about any other questions. So we are done with this. What are the software tools and all those things? So any other questions that you guys have collected and which you need answers for it? So anyway, I'll publish this on to you guys again after preparing.
To understand the requirement, Karthik, the approaches are like three types. One is work breakdown structure, another one is like the graphical representation of breaking the requirements, and top to bottom approach. These are the approaches for the requirement understanding. This way we can understand very easily the requirements.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Sure. Okay. Any other questions from anyone? Okay. How do you create a data dictionary for a migration? Okay. See, how do you create a data dictionary for a migration project? Data dictionary is nothing but it's a metadata reference sheet. Okay. So if you talk about a migration project, you need to understand in one application what is the, let's say I have a loan information in, let's take the similar example what Bhargav has given. One bank, you have a loan information is stored in the, loan type is stored in the column as L_type. And in another bank where you're actually merging, there it is stored as a loan_type. So you basically create a data dictionary. So saying that L_type is a column which will store the description about the L loan type, and this will be completely done at the design level. So when you say that creating a data dictionary, so just for creating or mapping the columns from one application to the other application, we create a mapping document kind of a thing for a testing purpose. But if you have to create a data dictionary, this is something that either your developer has to do it or your business analyst has to do it, because he or she knows the application, what is there in the other one application to the other application, who has a good idea how they can correlate. So we will create a data dictionary. This will be helpful for your developers as well as for testers. That's how we do the data dictionary document.
In my project, data dictionary is the data element Excel sheet where we have all the data elements and the transformation logics mentioned in that sheet.
Okay. So we called in our training environment as data mapping sheet or source to target column mapping sheet. That's what. So different people are calling it the different names, right? So any other questions that you guys have? Okay.
I have another question. How you collect the test data? If they ask such type of question, what do you need to do?
How do you collect the test data?
Yes, for ETL.
See, most of the cases, what we do is we will actually ask DBS to refresh the testing environment with the production data. In case if the system is new, for that you are building this one, you need to understand the functional aspects of it, and accordingly we create a test data and then run the scripts, run the insert scripts to populate that test data.
Okay.
What is a gap analysis from one system to another system? I don't think as a tester you do a gap analysis from one application to the other application. So it's basically you're just testing the application, right? So nobody will ask you to actually do that, but it is something that which an architect has to do it to understand. Probably as a DA, I didn't understand what you mean by DA. So what is that role? DA means? Data analyst. Okay. So yeah, if you have to understand the gap analysis, you need to be more like a functional guy to understand complete.
Karthik, in testing point of view, the gap analysis is like when you raise a defect, and when the developer is solving that defect, that is also like a gap. How much time it is taking, and the severity and priority, all those will also come under those area.
Okay, probably you can also term that as. So when you ask about the application to application, it's something little higher, right?
Yes.
So in the testing front, okay, if you have to create a gap analysis document, it's something that how you're actually raising a defect and how you're communicating it, how they are actually fixing it. These are all the gap analysis that you got.
Yes. So what was the severity and priority of the defect, and what are the functional areas of functional defects, functionality or configuration defect or data defect, what type of defects those all are, will come under the gap analysis.
Okay. Okay, sure, thank you. Thanks for answering that question. Okay. Okay, that's fine. I have just 12 minutes of time, so probably what I'll do is I'll just show you what is regression testing is all about for today. And probably with that, we will wind up what it is about.
Karthik, we completed OBI testing?
No, we haven't started. Okay, so regression testing is something that which we haven't talked about. Okay, so regression testing is actually required. Suppose, let's say I have a table. Okay, I'll just keep you guys on the mute for now.
Muted.
Regression testing is something. Let's say I have a fact sales table, and today I have a fact sales table, and this table has a 10 columns. Okay, and if this table is already present in the production, and every day the business users are reporting the data on top of this fact sales application, fact sales table, and the data is not being populated. Now your business user has actually come up with a CR. CR is nothing but the change request. So they asked us, okay, you add some more columns to this, and we have decided to add 3 columns for this release. We have decided to add 3 columns. Let's say I wanted to add percentage of the profit and percentage of the growth, and they also wanted us to introduce another dimension, probably something as product category. So something as a product category key along with this. So they wanted to add these 3 columns to the existing dimension so that they can also do the analysis based on the category of the product. So regression testing is why it is applicable is that, see, there is a data already, and when you talk about this fact sales table, so you need to compare the data, what is present in the fact sales table before the change and after the change. See, when you are making the change, when you are changing the fact sales table, the data inside the fact sales should not be modified. Modified because of this change. What I'm trying to say here is basically existing functionality should not be disturbed when you add these 3 columns. So what we do is, first we'll take the, before starting of the project, we'll take the backup of the table for a certain time period, for let's say for 1 year data or 2 years data, or if the table is used, we will even take it for 3 months data, 1 year data or 3 months data. So we will take the backup. So once we take the backup of that, and then we will, after the development and everything, after the migration, so after the migration, so basically now your fact table will have 13 columns, not the 10 columns. So this is the data with the 10 columns. This is a data with 10 columns, so we'll take the backup of that. And after the load, you have 13 columns. So as a third step, you'll compare the data for 10 columns. Compare the data from 10 columns from your backup table to regular table, backup table to regular fact sales table. So this is what you're going to create and assign. So when you say that backup the table for 1 year data, so how do you take the backup? So it's nothing but create table. Let's say I want to take the backup for this fact sales underscore, let's say today's date, if I want to append to this 2015 as, let's say, select star from fact underscore sales. So this is a table backup which you want to take and perform the regression testing. Let's say if you want to do that for a particular year, I think we have a date ID column, I'm not sure. So let me just query that, what is the column name here. So date ID, let's say I want to take for a 2000 year, so 2000, 01 and 01 and 2000, so basically 12 and 31. So when you try to execute here, you take the backup of this table, and this is, let's say, after the data load, your data is compared, and you're going to compare fact sales backup table for these 10 columns. So for this 10 columns only you're going to compare, and minus, so you're going to do the fact sales after the change as a regular table for these 10 columns. So you're going to compare the data between this and this. So the data should be matched unless if the grain of the fact table is modified. So data should match between your backup table and then this for a 2000 year only. So in the regression testing, you're going to compare the data between that and this. So this way you will perform the regression testing between the two tables. So this is how it happens. But practically to see that, I don't have an example wherein we modified the fact sales table from one to the another and then try to do that. So this is how we perform the regression testing, and it's just that you perform the minus query operation between this. So when you say minus query, so we compare the data as well as a count also between the backup table and this table. And that's how we do it. All right. So this is more on the regression testing part and how you do the regression. So if you have any questions related to ETL and the regression, you can go ahead. You have 5 more minutes of time.
Hello, Karthik.
Yes.
Yeah, how we give the parameters while for the testing, means when I'm doing testing a job or anything else, how I can use the parameters. This is another question they are asking. What is the navigation steps?
Okay, if it is Informatica,
Yeah,
I think,
Informatica.
Okay, if it is Informatica, it's basically we will have a file, parameter file. I don't think you attended that class. So there will be a file, and in that file you'll just go and modify that and run it. So there is something concept called as a parameter file. You need to know the location of that parameter file, and you need to understand which job is using what parameter file, and go to that parameter file location. And when you open that parameter file location, you'll understand what value is passed for, let's say, region code, what value is passed for this date value and all those things. You can modify that and then show. I mean, you can modify that and rerun it so that you can pass that value. So it's basically that you need to log into WinSCP and then modify that parameter file and run the job. Or next day when the job runs, it will pick up that date and then date.
Okay.
what is the legacy alternative tools? I don't think we have a legacy tools before Informatica, which was doing the job of an ETL. Alternative tools, ETL tools are your data stage, ab initio, SSIS, and Pentaho data integrator, BODS, lot of other tools are there. And ODI, Oracle data integrator. So these are all the things which you have. What are the different ETL tools? If somebody asks. Okay, so if you are good, then probably we'll just stop. Yeah, whatever the notes that we have created now, I'm going to send you these interview questions. And another question what I missed here is, to what extent would you be involved in the creation of an MDM? MDM is more like a master data that you're creating, and master data management testing is completely different. We will actually create a master data for customer, product, and vendor, something like this. Master data, not sure how it is related to ETL. MDM is again a different process. Okay, whatever the notes that I have created, I'll just send you. Thank you. Tomorrow we'll talk about BI. I'll show you the UI, what kind of testing that you'll, how to write the queries and all those things. Probably tomorrow we'll talk more.
You are providing training on MDM testing?
Yes, we do provide. MDM testing, no. We don't have. MDM testing, we don't have. I just have some documents if you need it for it.
Yeah, sure.
Tableau, yes. Tableau development we provide.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.